Ric Flair once wrestled in front of a few hundred fans in small-town arenas. John Cena just retired in front of a sold-out crowd 23 years later. 1. Ric Flair. Ric Flair built the Nature Boy persona through the 1970s, wrestling night after night in small regional territories before television ever carried his name nationally. He went on to hold 16 recognized world championships across multiple promotions, a number still cited today as one of the most dominant runs in wrestling history. In 2017, Flair experienced a serious health crisis that required doctors to place him in a medically induced coma, an experience he has since described publicly as the turning point that changed how he viewed the remainder of his life. He wrestled a final match in 2022 at 73 years old, and he continues sharing stories from his career through his own podcast today. 2. The Undertaker. The Undertaker debuted in 1990 with a slow, deliberate ring entrance that made him one of the most recognizable characters WWE ever created. He built an undefeated WrestleMania streak across more than 2 decades, a record that became one of wrestling's most closely followed storylines until it finally ended in 2014. Rather than disappearing after his final match, he stepped away gradually, documenting the process in a docuseries before his official retirement in 2020. WWE inducted him into its Hall of Fame in 2022, and he now hosts a podcast reflecting on his career while making occasional appearances at major events. 2 legends in, and both found a second act that had nothing to do with wrestling in a ring. 3. Triple H. Triple H spent the 2000s as one of WWE's most consistent main event champions, a run that made him a defining figure of that entire era. Rather than fading from the company as his in-ring career slowed, he transitioned into a leadership role behind the scenes. Since 2022, Triple H has served as WWE's Chief Content Officer, overseeing the company's entire creative direction, a shift widely credited with a noticeable resurgence in the promotion's storytelling and audience numbers. 4. Shawn Michaels. Shawn Michaels earned the nickname Mr. WrestleMania through a string of main event matches across the 1990s and 2000s before retiring from in-ring competition in 2010. Rather than leaving the business entirely, he moved into a training and creative role for WWE's developmental brand, NXT. Michaels is now widely credited with rebuilding that brand into one of the most respected training grounds for new wrestling talent in the industry. 5. Kane. Glenn Jacobs debuted as the Fire-themed character Kane in 1997, going on to become a multiple-time world champion across nearly 2 decades inside the ring. In 2018, Jacobs was elected mayor of Knox County, Tennessee, trading his wrestling persona for a role in local government entirely outside the entertainment industry. He was re-elected in 2022, and due to term limits, he is set to leave office later in 2026 after 2 full terms as mayor. Halfway through this list, and every single career took a turn nobody could have scripted in advance. 6. John Cena. John Cena debuted in WWE in 2002 and spent more than a decade as the most visible face of the entire company. He went on to hold a record 17 world championships across his career, more than any wrestler in WWE history. After announcing his retirement in 2024, Cena completed a full farewell tour throughout 2025, ending his in-ring career on December 13, 2025, with an emotional final match in Washington, D.C. He has since shifted his full attention to an acting career, continuing his role in Peacemaker alongside several upcoming film projects. 7. Bret Hart. Bret, the Hitman. Hart built his reputation through multiple world championship runs across the 1990s, becoming one of the most technically respected wrestlers of his generation. In 2002, Hart survived a serious stroke, and in 2016 he was diagnosed with and later treated for prostate cancer. He has spoken openly about both experiences in interviews and in his own writing. Hart remains an active WWE Hall of Fame ambassador today, appearing at events and discussing his career with a candor few performers of his era have matched. 8. Booker T. Booker T won 5 world championships in WCW throughout the 1990s before continuing his career in WWE in the years that followed. Since retiring from full-time competition, he has built his own wrestling training school, worked as a broadcaster, and hosted a podcast dedicated to the history of the business he spent decades inside. WWE inducted him into its Hall of Fame in recognition of a career that spanned 2 different eras of the industry. 8 names in, and the next 4 took paths even the wrestling business itself did not see coming. 9. The Rock. Dwayne Johnson became WWE's defining champion of the Attitude Era in the late 1990s, building a catalog of catchphrases still quoted by fans today. He went on to become one of Hollywood's highest-paid actors for much of the following 2 decades. Johnson returned to WWE programming in 2024 and 2025, not as a full-time wrestler, but as an on-screen authority figure and a member of the board of directors for TKO, the company now overseeing WWE's business operations. He has continued splitting his time between select WWE appearances and a steady slate of major film releases. 10. Edge. Adam Copeland, known to wrestling fans as Edge, became an 11-time world champion before a serious neck injury forced him into retirement in 2011, a moment WWE treated as permanent enough to induct him into its Hall of Fame the following year. Copeland proved that assumption wrong, receiving medical clearance to return to competition at the 2020 Royal Rumble after nearly a decade away. He later left WWE entirely to join AEW in 2023 under his real name, and has continued competing through several further injuries in the years since, still wrestling well into his 50s. 11. Sting. Sting, known offstage as Steve Borden, built a career spanning nearly 40 years and multiple wrestling promotions, first announcing his retirement with WWE in 2016. That retirement did not hold either. Sting returned to competition in 2020 with AEW, forming a celebrated in-ring partnership with his protege Darby Allin that ran undefeated for years. He wrestled his true final match at AEW Revolution in 2024 at 64 years old, retiring as a champion in front of a crowd that included fellow legends from every era of his career. 12. Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho debuted in the wrestling business in the 1990s and became the first ever AEW World Champion after leaving WWE to help launch the promotion in 2019. Jericho has continued competing steadily since, taking occasional breaks, but returning to AEW television again in 2026 at 55 years old. Few performers from his original era remain active headliners today, and Jericho remains one of the very few still doing it. 12 careers, and not one of them ended the way it began. Some of these performers walked straight from the ring into boardrooms, classrooms, or elected office. Others simply kept talking about the business they built, one podcast episode or public appearance at a time. Not one of these careers just stopped when the matches did. If seeing where these legends actually ended up surprised you, consider subscribing to AgelessStars for more real stories behind the performers you grew up watching. Tell us in the comments which second act surprised you the most. Until next time, AgelessStars will keep bringing the past back to life.